We still don't have an official release date for Horizon Forbidden West, but no worries at all, because in the meantime we can play Horizon Zero Dawn again. The only question is, if you're using HDR, should you use HGiG or dynamic tone mapping? And believe me, the answer is not that easy. Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel Amok Fall, and I totally forgot how great the visuals are in this game. This game is from 2017, and to be more accurate, 28th of February 2017. This was the release date and it looks amazing. So this game is almost 4 years old and wow, really wow, I have to say it, wow. The only thing what is missing is actually a 60 FPS performance patch for the PlayStation 5. But yeah, that's a topic for a different video. Today we're talking about HDR. And thanks to the great photo mode in this game, it is very easy to test HDR. But before we do this, we need to talk about some basics. During my whole testing, I didn't find any proof that the internal PlayStation 5 calibration menu has any impact in the game. That means also HGiG is not supported natively. But I have also good news. During my whole testing, I was not able to find any increasement in terms of brightness or gamma when you activate HDR. So that means on your LG CX or on my LG CX, brightness level 50 is still perfect OLED black. Okay, so let's start with this example, and I changed my camera settings a little bit that I can actually show you what is going on in this particular area. So no worries. What you can see on the picture is not real, okay? So I can clearly see all the details on my screen. There is no black rush whatsoever. This is really because of my camera settings. And I, of course, like to go in the settings first and show you what I have done here. Because so in the visual settings, we have, okay, of course, I'm using the feather resolution mode because I found you have less aliasing compared to the feather performance mode, and I couldn't see any difference in terms of performance. Anyway, so the only thing what we have is actually HDR rendering on and off, and we have a brightness settings which I left to the standard. So when I saw this first, when I started doing some testing with the game, I actually saw that HDR rendering on and off will maybe activate also HGiG or the internal calibration menu from the PlayStation 5, but it really looks like there's no impact whatsoever. So it doesn't matter what you set in the PlayStation 5, it has no impact on the game. So let's go back to the great photo mode and let me get this back here. And I hope I can get the picture back, and this picture mode is really great. So something like that, because we really need a very nice contrast between dark areas and bright areas. And what you can see here, HGiG is doing really a great job. You can see that HGiG is brighten up just this area here, nothing else. The whole picture stays in the same brightness, which is absolutely great, because then you have this very high contrast between very dark objects like the trees, and there's some shadow or fog going on the bottom. Really looks great, and HGiG is just concentrating on the clouds here and yeah, making them much brighter. So when we now using dynamic tone mapping, you can see the whole picture is getting brighter, which in my opinion destroys the nice effect what we have with HGiG. Dynamic tone mapping is destroying the contrast because now it looks like we have a much higher gamma, and also the brightness level is not correct anymore, and so on. So at this very moment, when we're just focusing on this example, HGiG is doing a much better job. Okay, so with the next example, it's actually a little bit harder to tell if HGiG is the right choice or not. So that's HGiG at the moment. If I'm turning this off, you can hopefully see just here from the clouds, you have a difference in terms of brightness. The rest of the picture, as always, stays the same. When I'm now turning on dynamic tone mapping, the whole picture again gets brighter, but also these highlights here from the clouds are looking at, or to me, it looks a little bit better than HGiG, because what I don't have at this very moment is very dark objects. So we don't need this how should I say, the contrast between dark and bright objects. So at this very moment, I would actually say that dynamic tone mapping on makes a better impression to me than HGiG, because the overall brightness from HGiG at this very moment is, in my opinion, a little bit too low. Okay, so with the next example, we have the situation that HGiG is actually a little bit brighter than dynamic tone mapping. So when you see this now, when I'm changing this dynamic tone mapping, the picture is a little bit darker. It's not much, but it's visible, okay? So, but also what we have, that HGiG is showing no details at the moment here in these clouds here. When I'm changing this to off, you can see very nice clouds, and when I'm turning on dynamic tone mapping, you still have nice fine details. So HGiG at this very moment is overbrighten this area, and yeah, dynamic tone mapping is the winner again. Okay, so in the next example, we're focusing on the background here where you can see this fog and hopefully a couple of trees. HGiG is doing a really good job. It shows you the details in the fog. With dynamic tone mapping off, you can see actually that HGiG is brighten up the fog and nothing else, which is a really nice effect. And with HGiG on, you can actually, or I can actually see the details in the fog a little bit better. On the other hand, with dynamic tone mapping, what you can see now, there are no details at all anymore in the fog. I can't see any tree, so it's very hard for me. Maybe I can see a tree here, but compared to HGiG, dynamic tone mapping is, missing all the details in the fog. But I have to say, dynamic tone mapping is brighten up the picture at this very moment, which from the overall impression from the picture, it looks a little bit better to me. So HGiG is a little bit too dark, especially when we consider that we have 12 p.m. at this very moment. So perfect sunny day. Okay, a couple of clouds, of course, but in my opinion, at this very moment, HGiG is missing the overall brightness, but shows you, of course, more details. Dynamic tone mapping gives you back the brightness what you expect from a sunny day, but it will also lose a couple of details. So very hard to decide which one or which mode is the winner at this very moment. Okay, so the next example is probably very hard to see for you on your screen, but let's try to focus on all these white objects here in the background, especially on the stones, or I think there are stones with snow on it. So I'm turning on and off HGiG, and hopefully you can see what I'm talking about. HGiG is brighten up very small, tiny objects, and the effect is really, really great. So because you're getting this brightness effect and you're not losing any details. On the other hand, dynamic tone mapping is brighten up the whole picture, and it makes those objects so bright that you lose actually all the fine details. So I can't distinguish any objects anymore here. And also in the fog here a little bit, it's getting harder to see the background from the mountain. So overall, at this very moment, HGiG is doing a much better job compared to dynamic tone mapping. So one of the highlights in the game is when you play in the dark, because of the nice, great light effects, especially from the moon. Focus on the moon, and HGiG is activated at the moment. So look what happened if I'm turning on and off HGiG. You can see the moon is getting much brighter. You can see a lot of details on the moon. It is really just amazing. On the other hand, dynamic tone mapping will blow out all the details. So I can't see any details anymore on the moon, maybe here on the side a little bit, but no comparison to HGiG, which is doing a much better job at this very moment. Because also what dynamic tone mapping is doing, as always, it will overbrighten the whole picture, and it will destroy you the nice contrast, because this is in the dark, in the middle of the night, so you don't need to have a bright picture. You don't need to see all the details. That's the point. It is dark, and even with HGiG on, I'm not missing any brightness at the moment. It just looks amazing to me. HGiG, clear the winner. Okay, so last test for today. We are in the middle of the night, HGiG is activated, and I'm not missing anything in terms of brightness. So this is of course very dark at the moment, and you need to consider that what you're seeing on your screen is not what I'm seeing on my LG CX, because my camera is not able to capture all the brightness from the screen at the moment. It's just not happening, okay? So you will see, or you have a very dark picture. I can clearly see, or I can see enough details here. So I'm not worried about that, yeah, I have to increase the brightness or whatsoever. On the other hand, dynamic tone mapping is, in my opinion, overbrighten the picture as always. It doesn't look quite right to me at this very moment, because yeah, I'm going to miss the nice contrast again. So it looks like the gamma level is not correct anymore, brightness level is not correct anymore, and it will also overbrighten the nice moon, which I really love. So again, at this very moment, in the middle of the night, HGiG is the clear winner for me. Okay, so time for a summary, and it is actually not very easy to recommend HGiG or dynamic tone mapping. So my recommendation will be, if you play this game in a very dark room, use HGiG. If you play this game in a very bright room, use dynamic tone mapping. So the advantage from HGiG is you have a little bit more details in brighter objects like the moon or what I showed you, but it is very minor also, of course, because you have to really focus on this stuff. What I don't understand is, and now we're talking about HDR rendering settings in the menu. So we just have this toggle switch here, HDR rendering on and off. That's it, nothing else, nothing to adjust. Brightness setting is the same as I'm aware of, the same as in SDR. So it's really poorly the brightness. So I would recommend to leave it on 50. So I was in the impression, if we have a switch like this in a game, then it will also rely on the internal HDR calibration settings from the PlayStation. But we need to consider, of course, this game is from 2017. I'm not sure when on the PlayStation 4, when it was introduced this HDR setting actually, because I'm very sure in the beginning from the PlayStation 4 there was no such setting or no such calibration menu, and then at some point they introduced these settings with a firmware update. Not sure when this was, so I would not actually say that this is actually yeah, a proof that this game is supporting HGiG natively, because I did a lot of testing, and regardless what I have set in the PlayStation HDR menu or settings, there was no impact in terms of brightness, in terms of better details, nothing at all. I was not able to see any difference, okay? So again, great looking game from 2017. I can't wait for Horizon Forbidden West. My expectations are very high on this game, hopefully not too high like with Cyberpunk. But we're not doing the same mistake again, okay? So we're just lowering our expectation, and we're just focusing on, let's say, 4K resolution in 30 FPS, and then hopefully we're getting a 1440p resolution with 60 FPS. But yeah, nothing, we don't know anything at the very moment. We just need to be patient. And I would say that's enough for this video, and I hope you had fun to watch it. And if I missed anything, just put it in the comments. And if you're new to my channel, do me a big favor, subscribe now. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for watching me. I'll see you next time. Bye.